welcome. We're going to just let everyone join us for the next couple minutes. We've got over 200 fellow IFMA members and guests from around the United States who are going to be joining us on this exciting event today. So we're just going to give ourselves another minute or two for people to sign in and so forth. We can't wait to get started. Okay, Holly, are we ready?
We're ready.
Awesome. Well, welcome to our virtual event and panel discussion about reshaping the workplace, planning for tomorrow and the post-COVID-19 future. My name is Christina DeBono. I'm president of ClearTech, and this is Holly Rau, managing director at PeopleSpace. We're leaders of IFMA Workplace Evolutionaries, or better known as IFMA-We of Southern California. Today's event is being recorded and will be available to you afterwards for on-demand viewing. Please feel free to ask questions in our chat box throughout the event, and we'll answer them at the end of the panel discussion. Our mission at IFMA-We is to stimulate workplace innovation and to empower people to create, lead, and implement workplace transformation. We bring together a diverse global community of Weevolutionary leaders and members through webinars and events, an extensive resource library with current white papers, case studies, articles, and social media, enabling members to connect with each other and thought leaders on key topics. I encourage you to check out our website to find out more about IFMA-We and how you can get involved. We'll be providing insightful resource materials to all attendees, including ClearTech's just published ebook about how technology will unite us in this distant future, the IFMA Foundation Pandemic Manual, JLL Global Research on Workplace Transformation titled Reimagine, and PeopleSpace's Return to Workplace Design Guide. Here to share with us about the crucial work of the IFMA Foundation is Irene Thomas-Johnson, board member and chair of the Global Workforce Initiative.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm so pleased to be here today with all of you. Looking forward to this amazing roundtable discussion that we have today. But first, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the Global Workforce Initiative and the important work that the IFMA Foundation has been doing. We have built relationships with many colleges and universities across the globe and have academic degree programs and registered degree programs with many of them. Those include Chaffey College in West LA and San Mateo in California, State Fair Community College in Missouri, and Collin College and Triton College in Texas and New York area. We also have developed some really exciting relationships with some nonprofit organizations as well as other organizations around the Americas. And those include Denver Economic Development, where we've just launched our first IFMA Foundation apprenticeship. We also have 3 Global Workforce Initiative advisors. Those include Sodexo, ABM, and my company, JLL. And we're really proud of that partnership with the IFMA Foundation, where we're able to really help in building diverse talent in the facilities management space. So if you're interested and are interested in diversity and inclusion and building the pipeline for facilities management, please reach out to Diane Levine or myself, and we would be happy to provide more information and get you involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene, for the incredible work you do with the IFMA Foundation and the Global Workforce Initiative. During this event, you'll have an opportunity to win free e-copies of the award-winning IFMA Foundation publication called Work on the Move 2, as well as applying what scientists know about where and how people work best. To enter the drawing and to participate in our polls, please go to slido.com in a new window and enter the code 2744. Make sure to add your name if you'd like to be entered into the drawing for free ebooks. So, join the quiz now, and I'm going to ask the first question. What is the average age of a facility manager? A, is it 27 years old? B, is it 49? Or C, 57? Okay, be sure to enter your answer and qualify for a free ebook. So we're going to go to our next question. What percentage of facility managers are going to be retiring in 5 years? A, is it 7%, B, 16%, or C, 50%? So, wow, did we get out of the way the answers already? Anyway, we will be announcing who won our ebooks at the conclusion of our panel discussion. So that leads me to introducing our moderator and our panelists today. I would like to introduce Holly Rau as our stand-in moderator for our panel discussion. She's been deeply involved in workplace strategy within the FM community for more than 20 years. She's a co-leader in the IFMA SoCal community and a two-time past president of the IFMA chapter for San Fernando Valley, where she served on the board for over 8 years. Holly not only brings decades of experience consulting and workplace planning and is the managing director of PeopleSpace in Los Angeles, she is a former ethnographic anthropologist and thrice published. Holly is a natural fit to assist in Diane's absence today because she's had the distinct pleasure of working under and with Diane on several projects, some of which have inspired the award-winning Work on the Move 2 book, just featured as a special giveaway at the conclusion of our panel discussion. Thank you, Holly, for joining us on such short notice. We know that Diane would have wanted to be with us today, and we know that you'll make Diane proud. I would like to now introduce our great panelists who will be involved in our discussion. Bill Connolly is the National Manager of Facility Services for Yamaha Motor Corporation. Bill has had more than 40 years of experience in the facility management profession and has been a big proponent of sustainable operations for almost 30 years. Bill has served as the president of the Orange County chapter of IFMA, as well as serving for many years on the IFMA board of directors. He's currently on the Environmental Sustainability Task Group and is a frequent contributor to the Facility Management Journal. Next, I'd like to introduce Ed Connolly, who's a managing director with JLL Consulting. Ed has responsibility for corporate real estate advisory and corporate strategy consulting. He's JLL's merger and acquisition specialist with additional specialties in portfolio strategy, process automation, location strategy, and finance modeling. He brings over 23 years of experience in real estate advisory, capital programs management, and financial services. Next, I'd like to introduce Kevin Reese, who's the Program Integration and Strategy Lead for Leidos, the global leader in integration and application of information technology, engineering, and science to solve customers' most demanding challenges. Reese has over 20 years of experience supporting corporate IT programs, managing and developing technology supporting IT operations, including collaboration environments, large-scale storage, enterprise-wide networks, security operations, and field support operations. Finally, I'd like to introduce Raymond Hall, who is the head of human resources for global markets and capital markets at JLL. Raymond spent the early part of his career serving in the military with the U.S. Army Special Operations Command before making the life-changing decision to move into the civilian sector. In his current role, Raymond partners with the executive team and provides leadership on business growth, talent development, and employee wellness strategies for over 32,000 employees globally. Raymond has more than 20 years global experience in human resources and has significant experience in developing HR policy and talent strategy. As we begin our panel discussion, we'd like to take a poll and get an idea of how many of you are working 100% remotely, back at the office, or in a hybrid situation. So we're going to give this about 30 seconds and have people sign into Slido to see what our poll results are. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, I guess 100% remote wins out, which is a great, we have a few more coming in. Okay, well, we'll go with that. 63%, which is a great way to lead off our panel discussion. So I'm going to hand it off to Holly, who's going to kick off the panel.
All right. Thank you, Christina. I know Diane would have wanted to be here today. Workplace strategy is quite possibly like one of her very favorite passions, and I hope I can bring that same level of enthusiasm and excitement to you all. First of all, it's an honor to be here to host and facilitate this really important discussion today. There could be no more relevant time, for us to gather as the IFMA WeHub community to share information, to reflect on the year behind us, and also to really lean into 2021 as it relates to reshaping the future of workplace. We learned a lot from 2020. Some have even been so bold to call it the greatest workplace experiment of all time. Not necessarily a planned experiment or maybe using the scientific method, right? But it was a full year and the change was very sudden. It was very drastic. It provided us a unique opportunity to measure and vet what things within our organization actually are flexible and agile during a time like this. And we were able to look at things like productivity, which have always been argued to be very difficult really to measure. With the lens and hope of a vaccine in sight, we are excited to kick off this really watershed moment for both our industry and I would argue for mankind. So we're going to look at, we're going to cover some workplace strategy, looking at deepening the model of the marriage between real estate, facilities, HR, and IT. Technology, I think we all have learned, has been really the backbone of what carried us through 2020. And we're able to talk about our customer, which is really our people, the organization's greatest asset, the greatest cost center. Also, these people are building and innovating for the future of our business and for our nation. How do we reshape and remold a environment that's safe for them in the moment and also thoughtful into the future? We're going to hit on mental wellness and a lot of things that were already fractured before the pandemic, like work-life balance, and then also kind of hit on something that was frankly, very thought-provoking this year, which is the topic of diversity and inclusion. How do we, now that we have potentially a more distributed workforce opportunity, how do we serve the underserved, and how do we bring in a group of individuals that can help us build around our vision and around what we should be doing? We're going to see some extremes where headquarters are now planning for their headquarters to be in the cloud, and we're going to hear about probably more organizations that still feel like it can be achieved here on the ground. And then we're gonna need to have to keep an open mind. There's a lot of different spectrums out there, and we're not going to suggest for 1 minute that one size fits all. So why don't we just kick it off with our first question? What industries are doing around reentry? I mean, what kind of insights did the last year provide? I'm assuming that April didn't look much like July, maybe didn't look much like late winter, right? Just before the holidays. So could you share what you've seen and maybe any success factors that, sustained business within all these important clients?
We're just getting rid of real estate altogether because we think we don't need space. The preponderance, though, of companies that we speak with are going to more of a hybrid model, where a large percentage of the working population will be working from home, or more importantly, working from anywhere, taking advantage of the workplace ecosystem that is now available to a lot of companies. And so that's everything from having desks available in the office, people working from home, co-location sites managed by third parties, to the local coffee shop, if you will. So what we are seeing, though, is kind of most companies are coalescing around working from home 2 to 3 days a week for most professionals, or for a large percentage of the population. As far as industries that are really kind of leading edge in that respect, it's the ones that you would expect: technology, professional services, finance. What's more surprising and really interesting to me is that we are, seeing other industries that are probably a little bit more laggards when it comes to adopting new work styles. That would include utilities, healthcare companies, and some manufacturing companies. So it's certainly a very interesting time. The timing of the vaccines rolling out is also creating some new challenges and some new questions. But one of the things we are seeing, JLL recently did a survey of about 2,500 client professionals. And we found that the vast majority, over 50%, anticipate that current restrictions in place around, or measures taken for COVID responses are going to be maintained through, vaccination period right now. And that only, about 35% are going to slowly roll back some of the measures that they've taken to keep their workforce safe. So that basically is showing to us that a lot of companies are listening to their employees, that their employees want to work from home or have the option to work where they want to. The work-life harmony is a very important driver for most of the people in the workforce, and it's going to become a recruiting tool going forward. So as we think about success factors that we see, the companies that are kind of getting out ahead of reentry and then kind of pivoting their portfolios to meet the new demands of the future operating models, which are changing at lightning speed. We're finding that those companies that have strong C-suite sponsorship, stakeholders at the business level are highly engaged. And that companies taking an integrated approach, and by that I mean, not just corporate real estate, but also IT and HR coming together to come up with a holistic solution to really address how people are going to work going forward in a post-COVID world. Those are the companies that are going to be best positioned for success.
Wow, thank you. That was a broad question with a lot of great broad context, and we appreciate that. That's why you're on the panel, by the way.
I try.
Our next question, I think I'm going to give to Bill, who has been very influential and is a very thoughtful leader in Southern California. So bring us your SoCal perspective on this, if you would. What impacts are you seeing and are you hearing about real estate? And what are probably some of the challenges of today, but also what are some of the opportunities of tomorrow, given what we know now?
Well, I think I'll start with talking about the irony of the fact that we see telecommuting is working. Even naysayers have to admit that telecommuting is working. It's been happening for the last year or so. If that persists and companies buy into that, then obviously real estate will be changing. Here at Yamaha, we could conceivably lease out a third or half of our space here and sublet it. Other companies will be downsizing. I wrote an article in the FMJ talking about green leases as companies downsize or change spaces and stuff like that. Landlords, I think, are going to be hurting a little bit, and they're going to have to be bending over backwards to agree with lessees' requests and demands. So it's an open ball of wax. As Ed said, some companies are going to go full bore with that. Some companies will not move at all from standard office practices. The hybrid approach, I think, is one of the better ones. When we talk about the office of the future, we're talking about open spaces and open seating to kind of replicate what people have at their homes now. They've been there for a year. They're used to the freedom and the flexibility of being in the home life. So when they do come back to the office, I think we're going to have to change the look of the office to replicate what the home environment is. But from the real estate aspect, I see lease spaces shrinking. I see owned spaces going out to sublease, or there will be no whatsoever. So it's really it's an open book right now.
Gosh, thank you. That's a great perspective. And, I think at a high level, we know that there just will be so much change, probably some contraction, right? But also it's an opportunity for those that really do want to bring people back to the office to actively engage their real estate professionals to talk about what the future looks like long term. I'm going to go to the next question, which is one of my very favorite topics. And we have JLL's head of HR, and this is a really unique opportunity, Mr. Raymond, for you to bring your experience to the table. We talk a lot about silos within the office, people separate now, disconnectivity, disengagement, right? And then some of the challenges, honestly, that are coming with well-being. And also, how are you as an HR manager for JLL handling some of the stressors that people are living with in that very fine balancing act between what's going on at home, what's going on, frankly, in the world, right? And then how they're getting their work completed, and what are you doing to support some of those measures?
Yeah, it's a great question. We conducted research called an employee experience report, where we surveyed more than 2,000 employees globally, and what we found out is just how massive the impact was on health and well-being, where over 2/3 of employees are experiencing burnout symptoms while working from home. And so we try to be intentional with finding creative and new ways to make sure we foster that sense of belonging. That's never been more important for us. The importance of employee well-being, I think at the start of the crisis, there were a number of things that we did to help mitigate these challenges. One was we rolled out a well-being initiative defining really 4 pillars of well-being: mental, physical, health, and obviously inclusion and belonging. But we've had to invest in technology and provide our employees with the tools and resources that were available with information around different types of employee assistance that they may need, from webinars to promote well-being to guidance for managers leading these teams in uncertain times. I think that's one of the biggest pieces that organizations have really missed on, is understanding who really has the biggest influence and impact on our people, and it's that first line leader. And so really focusing on developing them to how to manage and deal with remote workers and deal with the complexities and keeping teams connected in this environment has been very beneficial to our organization. And then I talked about technology, but there's a Headspace meditation app that's really received some really good adoption within the organization. And that's free access to all of these tools. Our employees, when you think about the number of training and development programs that have been executed since we started the crisis, we're well over 20,000.
Wow, that's incredible. I've heard these heroic stories, honestly, of organizations doing all sorts of things, some digitally, right, like trying to connect with more FaceTime than maybe they ever had with people outside of their office, doing things like cooking classes and yoga lessons, and trying to find these moments of what they call surprise and delight with care packages. Ed, are you hearing anything about that out there? I mean, I think companies are getting, in a way, kind of inventive at reaching, again, their customer, which is their workforce, their primary asset. Are you hearing anything fun about that? I listened the other day to the Goop facilities director talk about some of the things that they're doing. And it's a different take, based on what we saw a year ago with the whole perkonomics version, or we'll give you 3 gourmet meals a day, do your dry cleaning, you can get a haircut all on the Google campus, Yeah. So are you seeing anything fun out there like that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it fun. What I would call it is, companies are starting to realize that employees want maybe a different experience, and they're not putting as much value in being in these central locations with all of these amenities. That really the work-life harmony is making a huge difference. So, while, as Raymond mentioned, that people are getting burned out, at the same time that we are finding that people are enjoying occasionally not having to commute an hour each way to the office. That having control of their schedule is significant. I believe it was a Gardner study that was issued a couple weeks ago that's really starting to shine a light on how much of the day people are actually really effectively productive, and that's in the range of 2.5 to 3 hours a day, which is not much. But when you think about a commute, going into the office, connecting with your colleagues, it makes a little bit more sense. But at home, you're trying to fill in that gap. What we are seeing more of, though, is companies thinking, about workforce distribution. And what I mean by that is it's not a labor strategy in that we want to be in cheaper markets. It's we want to provide options to our employees close to where they live, so that way they can have a place to go when they need to come into the office. We're seeing that be a big consideration in the tech sector and in the financial services sector. I can tell you within JLL, our practice alone, we used to have hubs in major markets, Chicago, New York, San Francisco. That policy has been abolished. We are now hiring the right candidates where they need to be and providing them the flexibility to live and work where they want to.
It's fantastic. Thank you for that, for popping in on that. I do have, of course, what everybody's dying to know is what is the now space looks like, and I might be able to just address that a little bit based on what we do, and what does the tomorrow space looks like, which I believe is a more nebulous question. It's going to be different for every organization, but a lot of the now spaces right now, and Kevin, I see you on there. We can't actually see you, but I know you're on there.
Yeah, I think it's sort of somewhat hilarious. The guy who works in technology, hey, look, video showed up when I started talking. Okay. I lost internet right as this whole thing started. Of course, Murphy shows up, but hey, we're back. So yeah, it's definitely a very evolving in the technology world right now. It's sort of amazing how much focus has been really on things like WebEx, Teams, Zoom, they are all competing, and it is growing so rapidly. Everybody's trying to one-up each other and get a greater part of that business. And we're also looking at how we can bring that into the workplace. At some point, people are going to show back up at the office, and it's going to be how do you integrate the technologies that we've all used at home into an environment where some people are in the office, some people are at home, and spread out all over the place. And so that's really what we're struggling with right now, especially with a lot of the older room kits, so to speak, were very proprietary. They worked on their own protocols, would talk to the other room kits within that same environment, but didn't work with just open source, open protocol like, Teams, WebEx, etc. And it's trying to tie those all together is really one of the big areas that we're looking at right now in technology, and understanding how we can give the same sort of experience. It's in some ways, the interactivity with everybody being separated is a little bit better. It used to be that you have most of the people in a conference room and one or two people remotely, and they would sometimes get left out of the conversation. But now that, it's everybody on their own device, as long as people are talking up and, showing up their video, they can get a little bit more FaceTime, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's an element of it, right, that's a little bit more immediately gratifying, because you can, in 1 hour, you might be able to join multiple meetings versus spending the first hour driving to one, missing another. So this word hybrid keeps coming up, with synchronous, asynchronous schedules. It comes up with technology. It's coming up with physical space, of course. I loved that same customer I was talking to the other day was talking about the one that's building their headquarters in the cloud. They were talking about how they want their physical headquarters to be a headquarters retreat. So the age-old question is, we're planning space for a function. What is that function for that business? That business obviously wants to bring people together and exchange ideas and to build on the business. But we have a now factor, which of course technology has enabled us, frankly, to all be sitting from our home offices probably at this instant. But there's also a now of, we're not quite through phase 2 of the vaccine. We still have a little bit of a window here where we're going to have to do some rather drastic safety measures to make people feel safe when they return. And we know what those elements are. We won't dredge them up. A plastic screen or a beautiful, elegant screen is not going to solve the world's problems. HVAC, air cleaning and filtration is extremely important, but it's not going to solve the problem, right? So there's a holistic kit of parts right now that I think we're all working within. But I would be curious, Bill, maybe you could help us envision what you think the future of workspace looks like physically. Like, what are we planning for a year from today?
Well, there's a couple of considerations to take into mind. First off, as I mentioned earlier, people who've been working at home now, they expect that freedom and that resiliency and that ability to work anywhere they can and wherever they want. The shared spaces that serve that purpose should bring a welcome warmth and energy to the workplace. Employees will continue to be drawn to those spaces that bring them together. Something that I think Ed or Raymond mentioned was, we can now pick and choose employees from around the world, basically, if we wanted to. We also have to keep in mind that our employees can go around the world if they want to. They aren't necessarily tied to us anymore. So the workplace that they come to, whether it's once a week, twice a week, or 3 times a week, has to be inviting, has to be comfortable, and it has to be safe. As the new issues to create a safe environment due to COVID come about, there are a couple of different design aspects that we probably haven't thought about too much before. And that would be physical distancing, spatial context, and circulation patterns. So the office has to be built basically where we understand the distancing and density and their relationship to wayfinding, to proximity, and facility managers especially have to consider these new safety concerns. Shared spaces must pivot towards supporting the physical distancing and cleaning protocols that we need. And the spaces that employees must enjoy have to be adapted or created to not only enhance productivity, but to make them be safe and feel safe. Coming into the office here at Yamaha, we have to make sure that people feel that it's a safe environment. We tell them about our cleaning protocols. We have temp checks. We do a lot of things now very visible and very transparent so that people feel safe. We know they are, but we want them to feel that way. The workplace has to be designed to reduce the number of people accommodated in a space. No more elbow-to-elbow meetings. Teleconferencing and video conferencing rooms have to be much larger than they were before to see people basically safely. The arrangement of furniture must be changed to maximize distance and minimize face-to-face interactions. Screens or panels may need to be installed in areas, especially high traffic areas where there's a lot of traffic, and people want to feel safe sitting at their desk or their workspace. And traffic direction can be affected by the way furniture is laid out, the way boundary elements and accessories are there to cue behaviors, directional wayfinding and signage. Here at Yamaha, we have actually arrows now where we have one-way traffic. Not many people abide by it, of course, but they're there, So it makes people feel like we're doing something. These strategies can be used in combination with each other, along with performance principles, to address the design challenges for creating shared spaces where people can come together more safely and collaborate in a safe environment. As we adapt and design workplaces post-COVID, shared spaces offer the greatest ability in the future to flex as our needs toggle between creating greater distancing and coming closer together. I think the future of the office will be a place of collaboration, where people come in to work together and maintain an office culture. We see a future where fewer people will be coming to the office a lot, but everybody will be coming to the office off and on. So we have to make sure that we have spaces available to them. When they do, they want to be able to work with others. The coronavirus made working from home very acceptable, but it also showed how important interaction and the social connection is. So we need to keep that in consideration. We need to leverage open space. Shared social and collaborative spaces need to be created in the open rather than in closed spaces and with walls and stuff like that. Then we can more easily respond to the design challenges by providing greater flexibility for physical distancing and circulation patterns. We need to equip the open spaces with the essential tools. As Kevin mentioned, we have to make sure that technology is available for them so that they can interact with people either on video or face-to-face. And in order to integrate remote participation through technology, meeting rooms will need to have state-of-the-art video technology. So in the office of the future, I think the decades-long push toward getting as many people as possible in the workspace is going to change. We should expect more flexible seating as well as larger, more numerous and more robust conference rooms and huddle rooms. Offices of the future will have more common space than personal space. Currently, I think traditional offices are approximately 80% cubicles in offices and 20% common space. That ratio could flip. In a well-planned return to offices, management can use this moment to reinvent their role and create a better experience for talent, to improve collaboration and productivity and reduce costs. That kind of change will require transformational thinking, but I feel facility managers especially must drive that change to improve collaboration, to improve productivity. And then if we do see a decrease in real estate, then we have cost savings there too. So that's sort of what I see in my cloudy crystal ball.
I'll tell you, you hit all corners of it, by the way. I take a breath. That was incredible. That to your point, there's not one thing we have to sort of recurate. We have to recurate the whole thing. And of course, the most critical thing is the experience of that customer in there, right? That end user, that employee. We're looking to support a full workforce, not only just a function. Kevin, I'm curious, you hit on this a little bit, but real estate utilization tools, those apps, the heat mapping, in the old days where we did embrace hot seating and hoteling, we used those tools so somebody could find a seat. Now some of those software tools are being used to track density and occupancy, right? So are you seeing an uptick in the adoption of that? I know we talked about this prior, but seemed that a lot of us workplace consultants completely bought into that. We knew that 30% of the workplace was empty based on partial occupancy before, when we fully staffed. People reduced real estate down, went to hot seating, brought people back, and those were directional tools. But then that little issue named privacy kept coming up over and over again, which is people didn't want Big Brother telling them, knowing where they were from one part of the facility to the other. So are you seeing an uptick in that?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it really is a very quickly evolving market of where technology and health are getting more intermingled. I've used CES as an example. CES has had a pretty big health area every year. That's the Consumer Electronics Show. It's on yearly in Vegas. And this year it was virtual, of course. And there was a lot more business health than ever before that we're starting to see now. And in exactly those areas, how do you not only find a space to sit or find a space that is not occupied by others, but then also make sure for contact tracing, if somebody does report that they're ill, how do you know who's been by? And it's not, there's the self-reporting that I think a lot of businesses are doing today, but that's only good as people actually self-reporting. So we're trying to figure out ways of using technology, but also keep that privacy, whether it's, random Bluetooth keys that you can only look up when an incident happens and look out where things connect to. There's a lot of different ways to deal with this, but it also then, it's that privacy and knowledge. We've had it already in some areas that we've seen people say, I heard somebody got sick, but did I not hear anything because I'm not impacted? Or did I not hear anything because the system broke down and didn't work? And so it's definitely a balancing act on that. I think we're going to see a lot more growth in the space booking, not only for finding hot seats, as we want to call it, drop-in offices, whatever you want to call them, as we get more and more telecommuters, but you're also going to need to know population density. We're seeing applications of people counting through cameras that don't look at faces, maybe downward facing, where you can just see how many people are coming in and out of a building, just so you know, hey, if you're a large organization that has a cafeteria, are there too many people there right now? Fire code's one thing. COVID code now is a whole new thing. And so technology is trying to help out in that area and not only be able to count people, but do predictive analytics of, hey, when is the best time for me to go down and pick up a lunch, whatever it may be. I think the other big area that technology is hitting too is, I mentioned about these meeting environments. They're great for these meetings, but I think, Bill touched on it, and so did Ed, about the fact that we're missing that interaction, the water cooler talk, so to speak. And how can we recreate that in a virtual world? That's been a really hard one for those employees that may not be that good at speaking up and reaching out. How do we get them to draw out a little bit more? It's easy to see them sitting quietly in a corner in a conference room. It's not so easy to see them quietly sitting in a corner in a virtual space. And so we're trying to find ways of getting more of that virtual drop-in, knock on the office, have a question, and get a little bit more out of people. And I don't think we have a good answer yet on how that's going to be happening. There's some products out there that are looking at that sort of gives you an office layout, a virtual office layout, and you can literally see green, red, yellow, is somebody in a meeting, not too different from, if you use Skype or any other things that are you available or busy, but it gives more of the, hey, I just want to drop in and knock on the door, and you can ignore it or you can talk to somebody. But it's very much in its infancy. I think it's got a lot to grow, but I think this is going to be a major year of growth in technology in this area because it's been a niche market so far. And, you may have a lot of, traditionally in the technology field, you had a lot of people working remotely. Programmers could do their own part working from home. They didn't need to be in office. But now we're taking a lot of those more traditional roles that were very expected to be collaborative and moving them into these virtual roles. And how do we keep that interactivity, the conversations going, the brainstorming sessions between people? And that's one of the areas that's being a big growth as well. One other thing to touch on, I almost forgot, is digital whiteboards. That was, they've been around for a long time. People thought they were neat, but why do I need them? Why do I need to pay for software that I can just get everybody in a conference room? And now people are very interested in them. And that's a really interesting place of growth that we're seeing really rapidly. And there's also the benefits of, if anybody's ever been in a Kaizen session and put Post-it notes up there, you're always worried about the air conditioner coming on and dropping your Post-it notes. Oh, God, did somebody take a picture? Now you can have that in a virtual space, and it never disappears. So I think some of this will, even as we rotate back into being in the office, a lot of these technology will keep going.
Yeah. It's funny, when you were talking about water cooler talk and, sort of those accidental collisions, if you look at the research behind those, there is an incredible case to be made for how valuable those are, not only for human-to-human connection, right, where it's unplanned, it's spontaneous, but it's so welcome and it's so authentic. It's in that moment. But there's also great sparks that can help it with that spontaneity. And that's very difficult to recreate in a digital realm. I think it further reinforces what each of you have said, which is that connectivity in the moment in physical space is what will be a new bridge builder to the future, and we'll just have to plan those moments a little bit differently. I'm curious too, since you hit on this, Kevin, give you a little bit more airtime. What's AR and VR doing right now? Where's it headed?
Yeah, we've been actually playing with that in some areas. VR is very interesting. There's one company that we've been looking at, Spatial, that actually sets up a virtual space where you can meet and sort of see people, and you create avatars. In my little office, I know I've got this virtual background here, but in my little office here, it doesn't work too well. I keep running into the walls, the physical walls of the world, trying to do something like that. And it's still that separation. You end up pulling yourself out of the real world in an VR type world. You pull yourself out of the real world and are in this virtual space, but it doesn't really give you that business interactivity. But I do see AR, and it actually was there even prior, pre-COVID. I work in some areas where we have clean rooms for building things. And you have to go through a gigantic process to put on the bunny suit and get all the dust sprayed off of you and everything to get in there. And your job may just be to go in there and validate that the wiring's in the correct order for part XYZ, and then you're out of there. And you spent a half hour getting in to do a 5-minute job. Can I do that same thing through an augmented reality? And now we're saying, can I do this kind of interactivity of, hey, we don't need 1,000 people on site. We need 100 people, and those 100 people can wear the augmented reality glasses and sort of show people what they're seeing remotely. You don't need the people at home really having it as much. They can use their computer screens, but that gives that hands-on type experience. So it is interesting. We've also tried to look at it for an area of that, water cooler, so to speak. Again, the logistics of trying to get everybody into an AR world it's a high barrier right now. That could change. I've been watching Apple and everything. Everybody has heard possibly Apple is working on an augmented reality glasses. I think they could have a big impact. They seem to push the consumer technology, which then very quickly hits the business technology world. And that could make a big change in that area. That's sort of what I see coming down.
That's so great. And I think you make a good case there. Consumer products are definitely starting to influence how we use things. They're in our little mobile, smartphone. They're definitely being adapted. I can say on the service side, we've been showing people products that way. We've been using augmented reality to crawl underneath the desk that actually doesn't exist in the physical world, but it exists in the digital world. So I think we'll continue to see more of that. All right. Raymond, talk to me about how we can make the world a better place from an HR standpoint and distribute workforce with the right people for all organizations. It was a hard year, right? Looking back, and I think it's a good time for us while we are pivoting and planning for the future. How do we integrate more diverse people into our organizations and honor that diversity ongoing?
So there are two aspects to this in terms of what we've seen take place over 2020. The first is we know that women and other diverse workers have been disproportionately impacted by the environment, especially when you compare that to non-diverse employees. It's a disturbing trend for us. And working remotely, although there are benefits to it, has also brought on another set of complexities in that it's difficult for diverse employees to connect and collaborate and socialize and build that network that they really rely on in a normal environment. So what we've done at JLL to help mitigate that piece of the equation is we've empowered and leveraged our business resource groups where many of these employees belong to help keep them connected and engaged during the pandemic. I think Ed may have touched on some of the fun stuff that those groups lead with these employees, from virtual happy hours to wellness checks, just to make sure people are doing okay. Just making every effort we can to support them, particularly from a retention perspective. The other aspect is working caregivers. I remember checking in on one of my own employees just to see how she was doing. And what I found is not only does she have one job, but she has 4 other jobs I had no idea she had, from tutor to lunchroom person to IT manager with kids. It's just a very, very complex thing. And so organizations have had to be more strategic and deliberate about programs they're putting in place to make sure that they provide the right resources more than anything for people to, feel like they matter and connected to the organization.
Thank you. We'd be remiss if we didn't kind of acknowledge the year behind us and not try to solve broader problems. I think we as facilities professionals are very good at it. If we're nothing else, we are fantastic holistic thinkers, and we're in the problem solving business, right? And again, we have this rare moment where we have the fusion, finally, the right fusion at the right time between real estate, facilities, HR, and IT, to where we can really re-landscape what that workforce looks like. So thank you so much. I know that'll be meaningful for many and all of us. The question had come up early on, which is, how are we benchmarking all of this? And we're lucky because we are all IFMA members and we have access to great benchmarking information. We have leaders in their own right. Bill is one. Ed, you're another one. We have Diane Coles, who couldn't be here today. We have people with fellow status because they've committed their entire career to change and to continuous improvement. What are some of your ideas for us to benchmark what organizations are doing out there well? Where can we go? We don't pretend to have all the answers. There's a lot of third-party organizations, there's publications, there's organizations that we can tap into. I'd love to hear where your brain food is. Where are you, outside of IFMA, where are you getting it? What are your clients leaning into? What's a resource library we can leave our audience with today? And Ed, I'll start with you because I see you nodding your head.
Well, of course, I start with JLL. our research. But in all seriousness, though, this has been an unprecedented time. Our practice has this internal email chain where we just dump any articles we see, and it probably takes me about an hour every day just going through the various pieces of literature, articles, blog posts, what have you, that are talking about all the dynamic changes that have been going on in our industry. I mean, it really, truly is unprecedented. Where we typically do look, though, is to some of the thought leaders in the industry. And it's not just within real estate. Gartner puts out a lot of great content. The accountancies, also have a lot of great information. We're seeing, particularly if you want to get kind of leading edge a little bit, looking at some of the business publications like Inc. and Forbes, Fast Company. These are ones that are really starting to highlight how technology is to what Kevin was talking about. Technology is enabling people to work in a different manner. I'm going to assume that for everybody that's on the occupier side on this call, the service providers are putting together some great information as well. It's imperative that everyone kind of stay in the know about all these dynamic changes because things are changing so fast. One of the things that we like to tell members of our team and our clients is that, in the first 3 months of the pandemic, there was a 5-year acceleration in technology adoption. And I see Kevin nodding his head. And I think, what are we up to about 10 years now, Kevin, over the life of this? I mean, this really is truly interesting times.
Kevin, what would you add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it is such an area that I'm not sure we know where it's going to go yet. It's growing so rapidly. We talk IT decades a lot in my industry, and an IT decade is usually about 2 to 3 years. And it feels like, we went through an IT decade in the year, especially in the collaboration, virtual collaboration space. And it's growing so rapidly. I'm not even sure we know where it's going yet. I mean, Microsoft Teams, they throw in things like the gallery view where everybody looks like they're sitting in a stadium. I would have never said that Microsoft was going to release something like that a year ago, and I'm not sure how good it is yet and whether people are really using it. And I think we're going to have a lot of people throwing stuff out there and seeing if it sticks to the wall. And in the DevOps world that we're living in now, you're going to see it live in the clients that everybody's using very quickly. There's not going to be a lot of beta testing time. There's not going to be a lot of time that the IT department goes off and plays for 6 months with something. We're living in a world where most of the products we get now are software as a service. So it's not being developed in-house, and it's not being waiting for the next release. You're living live with all the new versions as they're coming, and it's going to keep growing very rapidly. I do think this space will continue to grow, even as we move back into the office. For a lot of the things that everybody else pointed out, right? Companies are starting to realize trying to co-locate everybody is not cost effective. You limit your talent pool. You have a lot of issues there. And so they're going to be much more reliant on the technology to keep us together. I think, it was mentioned about what will the workplace of the future be. I mentioned one time, we plan offsites today where let's get everybody out of the workplace. Well, we did a year ago at least. Let's get everybody out of the workplace together and focus heads down so they don't have distractions. Well, I think that may be the workplace possibly in the future. Get everybody together so they don't have the distractions of their normal workplace here in this virtual world.
That's a good point. I love the contrast. Bill, I'm sure you're dying to hit us on this. IFMA's so good at benchmarking. We do pull from every level expertise. I think it's just gotten broader over the years, but where are FMs getting their information right now?
Well, I'd start with the IFMA website. We have, if it's COVID-related issues, we have a whole section on COVID. We are maintaining good alliances now with ASHRAE, with ISSA for cleaning, for U.S. Green Building Council for sustainability. We're really strengthening our bridges there. But IFMA, to me, is the hub. We are the ones that have to put this stuff together. Facility managers, there are a lot of great ideas out there, but when it comes to implementation, we have to do it. So really sharing amongst ourselves is my best resource.
Reinforcing the importance of meetings just like this, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's too much information out there. I can't go too much farther than what IFMA's given me because, my mind can only hold so much. So I focus on what I can learn through my peers, through my network and stuff like that, and try and make adjustments as we find out things that work or don't work. For every success, there's probably 10 failures. So we have to learn from those too.
Great. Thank you. And Raymond, we always start with, and we need to always continuously move through our important customer, our workforce. How do we continue to educate ourselves on how to take care of that very important piece of our business?
Yeah, I really believe that to be successful in this new normal, when we're talking about what does the future workplace look like and all of that, we need to first understand the purpose of the office through the eyes of our people. And when we think about reimagining what that looks like, we need to understand what their preferences are because it continues to change. And so surveying our people is one of the things at JLL that we've been very successful at, periodic pulse checks to understand what their preferences are, what their accommodating preferences may be. And that's led to us thinking through spaces and technologies to really design that support that will meet their needs.
Beautiful. We have to leave a little bit of time for Q&A. We have had over, I'm told, 200 people join us today. Quite outstanding. I think they're all still with us. I hope they are. And Kelly, you were going to tee up some questions for us. Let me see if I can get to chat and check that out. I have all kinds of fun stuff in chat. I have people's points from the from the survey, but I don't see the questions, Kelly.
So I do see one up there that got thrown in here earlier, which was besides video conferencing, what other tools are helping people stay connected? And I can jump in and start and let everybody else jump in. I know one that we've used is whether it's Slack or Microsoft Teams, of having a group chat place where people can not only it's persistent, where you can post up things, and we've been telling people don't be work related, that it can't be. But it can be anything. Take a picture outside of your yard. Take a picture of your dogs and cats that you get to spend time with. And it's a good way for people to keep connected with each other, find a little bit out about each other that they may not have known before, and share a little bit of their life. We're finding people are finding commonality that they never even knew before because it was always somewhat business talk before. They never had that personal time with person X or person Y.
Thank you, Kevin. We had somebody ask a question around what the future of the office is, and I think we've addressed part of that, but the question was function, and I think, Bill, you hit on so many of those things, and Ed, you hit on those things, but we know that it's bringing people together, right? It's a destination where people can find other people, where they can find resources needed, down to, in my world, equipment plotters. How am I going to get my plans plotted without a plotter, right? But also, it's to house and exchange ideas more broadly, which support the business. Would anybody add anything to that?
Holly, if I may, I think I mentioned this earlier, but the question that everybody should be asking now is not where should people go to work? It's why should people go into the office? If you start with that question, it then forms everything of a post-COVID world. I mentioned earlier that JLL did a survey of our clients with over 2,000 respondents, and we found that there actually is a tipping point where there's a precipitous drop in employee engagement, and that's where people are projected to work remotely or work from anywhere more than 2 days a week. So that shows there's still a very significant role for office space in the future, where what we anticipate, and I think everybody on this call could probably appreciate, is that the role of facilities management and CRE teams more broadly is going to change as a result, and that means it's more service based. It's more kind of that white glove service as opposed to just fulfilling work orders. And so there's going to be a major pivot, I think, as real estate organizations, corporate real estate organizations, move forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody have anything to add there?
This is Bill. One thing I noticed, especially here in California, when we had the stay-at-home orders and all of our workforce was gone, we had maybe 12 people here in the facility. I had employees come back because they, quote, forgot a pencil, they needed more paper. They were just coming back to get that social interaction, just to see people. They'd wander the building and talk to whoever they saw. But the hybrid approach that Ed mentioned earlier is probably the best of both worlds, where people can work from home, but they can come in and not rub elbows, maybe bump elbows a little bit with other people, just to have that human. I mean, mankind, we're a social animal. We cannot live alone. No man is an island and all that. So it's good to be able to have people come into work. Why? Because they want to. I mean, I'm not sure if people need a valid reason if they just want to come back and see people. So that's how I'd look at it.
I heard a funny joke the other day that if you asked someone how they were doing in April compared to August, compared to December, you'd probably get a different opinion of how they felt about this hybrid life. Because at first it probably felt like an amazing escape, right, from the confines of your cubicle or the built environment, and more time with the family, and then too much time with the family, and then no time with the family, right? Like the holidays said, you must stay home and you can't be with your extended family. It got to a varying degree and level to where people were really riding the full range of emotion. We have to hit on our Slido data, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, Christina. I know that you have results, the giveaway. I do want to just thank everybody for their time, since we are running a little bit short on time. It takes organizations and a community like this to keep ourselves informed. I think we have learned new tools that will better arm us with plotting and planning the future. We know we need to remain agile and flexible for whatever that future holds. And we have to keep people at the center of all of our problem solving, right? And that we have to, hopefully, the one takeaway here is, hopefully we need to reimagine a space, both physically and virtually, where we can connect people better. But I think we did a really great job today in connecting 200 plus people in an hour and a half. And Christina, take it away. And she's muted. Christina, you're muted.
That is so funny. Okay, I think that's become the most popular word in the last year. Anyway, I would like to thank our incredible panel and moderator. Holly did a phenomenal job today for sharing their insights on reshaping our workplace, from the past to the present and in the future. It was engaging, dynamic, and thought-provoking. We actually would like to plan a 2.0 version of this event, so stay tuned. But to have a compendium to the panel discussion, we would like to do a follow-up poll. And the follow-up poll is, we would like to find out if you plan to continue to work 100% remotely in the future. Is your plan to go back to the office full-time? Or in the future, do you imagine your world to be hybrid? So I'm going to give this 30 seconds for everyone to answer through Slido. Oh. Okay, that's an amazing result. 80% envisions a future that's going to be a hybrid version. So really, our workplace
is now exiting.
Transforming. So I would like to thank everyone, our hosts, for making this a successful event today. We will be following up with the winners of the ebooks post this event. And we hope you will join us again for future events. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina.